All right, in this video, we're going to talk about chemical properties and changes. So this will not be as long as the physical properties and changes video. So the definition of the chemical property is the ability of a substance to react to form a new substance. So it's something that can happen to it that's going to make it react. So if you are like poking a bear is going to make it react. That's a pretty poor example. But that's sort of like what chemical properties are like. So we're going to talk about them. We're going to go through the list of chemical properties, and hopefully that makes it make more sense. So combustion, okay, so this is what the property is. You would say that something has the ability to combust is when it reacts with oxygen. So notice all the chemical properties start with reaction with. So it reacts with something and it produces combustion, which is the property. Okay, so reaction with oxygen to form combustion, and when it does this, it forms carbon dioxide, okay, water, and energy, which we see as heat or light, so fire. Okay, so an example of this would be propane. Okay, so propane reacts with oxygen. Okay, so this is propane. Reacts with oxygen and it makes carbon dioxide and water and energy. And when you get to grade 10, you're going to learn how to balance this all so it makes sense, all right? So these things come together. This is like your equal sign. They produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The next chemical property, before I move on, so the chemical property of propane is that it is combustive, right? It will combust when it reacts with oxygen. So the next chemical reaction, so reaction with oxygen, is corrosion. So then we would have iron in this case reacts with oxygen and it forms iron oxide, which you know as rust. We don't like rust. So now we have iron reacting with oxygen to form the corroded material iron oxide. So it's a chemical property of the iron to do this. All right. Now the last one is react with acids. So a very common one, and depending on what the reaction with what is reacting with the acid depends on what goes in this circle here. So you're very familiar with baking soda and vinegar. You put them together, you get lots of fizzing, you get sometimes what appears to be a smoke, and it gets really big. So that is a base and an acid. So baking soda is your base and vinegar is your acid. So bases react with acids and at the end they produce salt. So not just like table salt, NaCl, salt is a chemical term. They produce a salt and water once they're done. Okay, so we're going to look at when acids react with metals. That's another one that's really common. And so we're going to use magnesium metal. So that's Mg, plus we're going to use hydrochloric acid, which is HCl. All right, and they react together and they produce magnesium chloride. So this is actually a salt. And they produce hydrogen gas. And this is very reactive. All right, and this is we're going to do this later. You're going to get hydrogen gas and you're going to light it up, because a property of hydrogen gas is that it combusts with oxygen, and then it's going to produce water, carbon dioxide, and we're going to see the bang, the energy that it makes. Okay, so now the next thing, sorry, my messiness has covered it up a bit, is a chemical change. Okay, so a chemical change results in the new formation of a new substance. So that new substance has a new chemical makeup. So when we looked at physical changes, I could have had a new substance, right? I could have had ice from water. But that didn't change the chemical makeup of the ice, right? Ice is still water, like it's H2O. Now what's going to happen, look at all these up here. We have new things. Remember, this is like your equal sign. I don't have these things on the other side of the equal sign, okay? And that's what a chemical change is. A chemical change is I get something going in and something brand new composition comes out, okay? So chemical change results in the formation of a new chemical substance. Whoops, that's an O. All right, so look at our examples above, okay? All these things are chemical changes. So usually a chemical property describes what could result in a chemical change. So how do you know, when we're doing labs, how are you going to know that a chemical change has occurred? There are 6 ways that we are going to accept in this class, okay? So 1, heat is produced or absorbed. Okay, so it either gets hot, pretty easy, I bet you could think of lots of examples of that, or it gets cold. Okay, light is produced. We're going to look at some of those. We have some pretty magnificent examples of that. A new gas. So when you're doing your observations, there are signs that a new gas is produced. Signs of those are odor and bubbles. So if you write that something bubbles on a lab, you're going to get half a mark. What's going to get you a full mark is saying that it bubbled or fizzed, suggesting a new gas was produced. Okay? A new color, and this is another hard one too. We're going to do an example of this. So a new color is produced. So this isn't red and yellow make orange. This is 2 transparent liquids make blue. What? How did that happen? Well, there was a chemical change then. All right, so this again is not, it's not like mixing paint, that's physical. It's 2 unexpected changes occur, or an unexpected color change occurs. And the last one is that the change is very difficult to reverse. Some people say impossible, and that's not true. Okay, so it's pretty easy to get your ice back after it's melted. It's pretty easy to get that piece of paper back if somebody tore it up. You can just tape it back together. It's really hard to get my new car body back after it's rusted. Okay, so that's what the difference is there. And then the last one is when 2 liquids are mixed together, they form a solid, which is called a precipitate. So just think about the rain, precipitation, okay? So two liquids mixed together, and in the bottom of the flask, you get a solid there. Okay, so you need to know these very, very well. All right, so we're going to do some lab activities in class for you to get familiar with these. There's the practice sheet for you to work on. And what I also want you guys to do on your own to help you with your lab. Sorry, here's the sheet. So this is right attached to this note. So there's this sheet to work on. We'll have time in class to work on this. What I also want you to work on your own is to make a little flow chart. Now, does it have to be this detailed? No. But I want you to have physical and chemical changes, right? And just a quick reference for you when you're doing labs. What are signs of physical changes, or what are physical changes, and what are signs of chemical changes, and how do you know it's happening? And then when we're going to do our lab, because we have a couple labs where you have to tell me, is this a physical change or a chemical change? You pull this sheet out and you can look at it really quickly. You're not stuck thinking about what it is, okay? And so that is the end of physical and chemical changes. The next thing we're going to move on to after this would be classification of matter.